So yeah, like Danny said, I run strategy for Marketeering Group, so I'm usually the one that's the point person for the client and actually planning out their campaigns for the long term. So there's a lot of predictive analytics, a lot of actually doing what I'm going to try to do today is break SEO down from a very actually kind of complicated and very robust practice into something that's kind of palatable for most circumstances. So the way I like to do this is if you have any questions, just pop your hand up and when I get a break, I'll answer it. It'll be better in context anyway. Yeah? Okay. So, SEO. SEO, search engine optimization, Danny already kind of covered this. But really what it is trying to make your website easier to understand for both humans and computers. That's about it, right? Most of the computers we're talking about are search engines, primarily Google, because Google sends a lot of traffic. So that doesn't mean SEOs are, that Google are necessarily fans of Google. That's just the way it goes. We have to work with them. All right, but the implied goal of SEO is to use marketing research to identify the most popular search terms like best headphones for sale, and further optimize web pages to satisfy searchers' intent. Searcher likely intends to purchase headphones. Okay. So I'm just going to start with the most important tip for today. Kind of what Danny was getting at a little bit is you don't have to worry about any of the technical stuff. If you get into stuff that's a really serious problem with SEO technical, just hire someone who knows what they're doing. It's going to save you a lot more money. What I'm going to teach you how to do today is plan out content strategy, get started on link building, do all those other things that you don't really have to know a whole lot to do. So the most important tip for today, SEO is not that different from everyday life. There's an invested interest in SEOs to try to make it seem as complicated as possible because then we can bill you more, right? If you don't understand what we do, it's a lot more likely that a wicked SEO could just bill you a lot like, no offense, but lawyers, right? So don't believe most of what you hear about SEO. Really, it's very simple. Let's say you go to a party, right? If you want to win a party and you can't be the most confident, energetic person there, you can't be an Amazon, you can't be your big competitor online, just endlessly prop them up and compliment the one who is, right? Laugh at the jokes even if they're not funny. A lot of other people are going to be doing the same whether they realize it or not. It's very simple. They'll piggyback off that popularity and get you on benefits. By the way, anytime you go to a party, just do that and you'll see. It's actually very, very successful. So, winning and getting links to your websites, ditto. You do the exact same thing, right? You won't be able to create the best content or be the most popular. Anybody can do SEO. You just have to have enough money. But can you get good ROI when you do SEO? When I work in pizza restaurants, we have what? I'm lucky. What do I have? Like $120 a month budget sometimes to work with? Okay, so what do? Go get a bunch of links for Huffington Post? It's not going to happen, right? So I have to find lean ways to get a return on their investment to convince them to then invest more. Because now, hey, look what I did with $120. Now give me $300,000 or whatever. So what you have to focus on, too late. The time of SEO where you've got a website ranking for best headphones for sale, it's over. It's not going to happen anymore. What you need to do is you need to find ones who are already there and try to get them to mention you as well. Okay? That might not be in the headphone industry. That might be in the ear health industry. I don't know. You have to look for these kind of markets. All right. So let's define what a web page actually is in SEO terms. So anything you see online, a web page is just a document. It's exactly as if I wrote a piece of information on a piece of paper and gave it to you guys and asked you guys to how important is this information to you? You might share it with other people. You might pass on some juicy tidbit that you learned from my notebook paper. You might add it to your notebook paper. Whatever you do, that's the exact same thing a web page is. So if you were to just pass a note, all you're doing is spreading a message that you started online. And that's exactly how Google is going to treat every single web page that you put up. So understanding the influence, the decision that influences people to pass that note or to add your information to their document is all you really need to know to understand how SEO works. All right, so let's talk about what motivates the sharing. Every document has to have a purpose, unless it's worthless. Your motivations for sharing the info on that document with others might include, here's some specific examples online, the sheer value of information. So CNN, they're publishing their news first. So there's value in getting that news first, okay? How well the topic is covered compared to other sources. So Wikipedia, there's not a whole lot of searches you'll put in that Wikipedia doesn't rank #1 or #2 in Google. There's a reason. Typically speaking, they have the best source of information for that, for that topic. How well it fulfills a promise. This is the best dog tuxedo on the market. So you have a miserable dog over here with a tuxedo on. The question is, what purpose does this document hold? It doesn't really have any unique content. but maybe it makes the checkout process easier. Maybe they have a cheaper price than everybody else. Maybe they have something free shipping, sizes for plus-size dogs. I don't know. They have something here that makes their process more valuable to a user. And then how popular the original publisher is. Chances are, if you're doing price comparison in Google, you're probably going to lose a lot of leads to Amazon if they even rank near you. You don't need to rank number one. You just have to be on the first page. It's a big misconception about SEO.
What's that? Can you repeat just the last, like the last sentence?
Oh yeah, well, one of the things you'll hear from SEOs is that, oh, I'll get you number one. I'll get you number two or number three. It's all nonsense. It's complete nonsense. As a matter of fact, most of the time, you're going to kind of waste a lot of money trying to chase that number one ranking. Like when I talked about ROI. Think about how you do a Google search. When you go in Google, do you blindly click the first result for every search you put in? Of course you don't. You read down the document, you read the descriptions, the titles of the results, and you actively, as a human, find the one that best matches your interest. That's what Google ultimately is hoping to accomplish. They're not good enough yet, but they're hoping to always predict exactly what you wanted, and that's how they're trying to organize things. For the time being, there are a lot of other things that you can focus on and be happy that you rank on the first page. You can write a better description. You can find out what's wrong with people's titles. You know, you can use something like Mechanical Turk at Amazon to do a fake listing of search results and try out a bunch of different titles and descriptions and just ask them, pay them a nickel in action to see which one appeals to you more for this search. So you can get some great data for not very much money. So there's a lot more to this than rankings. So never trust an SEO who opens a conversation talking about rankings.
But first page is still important, right? I mean, number one might not be
Yeah.
but the pages.
Well, we're not really talking about, okay. We're talking about visibility. Everything we're talking about is eyeballs, right? So if you get eyeballs on you, you're getting impressions, right? So that's really what matters. After that, you're taking a piece of the pie. And you can spread out your rankings to be more first page rankings, or you can invest heavily in a few. At the end of the day, if you have 1,000 first page rankings, that's far safer of a long-term marketing strategy than having 2 first place rankings in Google. What happens if Google penalizes you, or if you get a competitor that shows up and knocks you down? You will lose thousands and thousands of dollars overnight, just like playing stocks. So there is absolutely no point in chasing number one rankings in most cases, right? Okay. So getting back to the note thing. Most people don't pass notes anymore, but there's a catch when you share documents online. Obviously, everything you do online, there's now a record of it. Whether it's anonymous or whether they have more information on you, Google's desperate to get the maximum amount of information they can about you, because that has a direct impact on the search. Another reason we don't talk about as much about rankings anymore is the search is heavily personalized. When we're talking about local search, it's heavily matched to your location. If we're talking about global search, it's heavily matched to your search history. And a lot of information about you that Google has. So the idea is that no two people eventually should see the same search results. Okay. So when you share things, you have to be aware that there is a record, and then Google can track everything that happens to a document, how many times it's shared, how many times it's linked to, the kind of popularity it has, and that's the thing you're going to want to have to influence in SEO. All right, so simply put, a search engine, the thing that we use all the time. A search engine is a program usually publicly available as a website that uses rules to rank documents based on a question. So every time you put a search in Google, you have to keep in mind that you're asking a question. And Google's response is their answer to that question. So the quality of that answer has a direct impact on Google's revenue. Because if you're not happy with the results consistently in Google, you're going to go somewhere like Bing or Yelp. So you have to remember that Google's a business, and they have a vested interest in protecting the quality of the first page. So if you have a bad site, if you have a site that doesn't look very good or doesn't have very good content, and you do manage to get on the first page, I mean, you're not going to stay there for very long. So it's worth thinking about things a little deeper. Anyway, Google's a predictive system, so every rule is designed to predict what you want. The intelligence of these rules generally determine the quality of the results. So over time, the algorithm has gotten more and more intelligent, more complicated, so the results have improved. I don't know how many people remember using search engines back in the day, maybe even 10 years ago, and how miserable they were, how much spam there was. I don't know, anybody remember that? Come on, yeah. The days of our friends Alta Vista and Excite. Yeah. Not really relevant right anymore.
So what Like,
Yeah.
aside from other structural reasons, what was the why was it decline of the like they just didn't dynamically update their algorithm? Is that why they declined?
Well, I kind of took this part out, but I'll cover it really briefly. Google was one of the first ones to kind of change the rules and start saying that they didn't even talk about page rank. And that was a really big shift in the ideology of how documents are organized online, where it decided to rely more on link metrics and then more than content, right? So they realized that if we only look at the web page itself, we only get a limited amount of information that we know the webmaster, the person in control of that site, provided. That's very manipulable in SEO, right? But if we trust other people to which that document didn't have access, or at least Google can believe that, we get a much better idea of how valuable a piece of information is online through linking. Now you have to remember when Google came out with that, they were one of maybe two that were doing it, and they had a huge round of funding and huge backing for their idea that allowed them to propel to the front. They're just another business. So the reason they got big is not because they're the best. It was timing. It was having the right resources at the right time. And they succeeded. Google messes up all the time. All the time. They mistakenly buy services. They roll out weird changes. They cancel programs that fail. Google Plus is a failure. They just haven't admitted it yet. So, I don't know. They're just a business. So, a lot of SEOs realizing just how imperfect Google is and taking advantage of those inconsistencies. All right. So, let's talk about how Google thinks. And this is going to be very simple. Obviously, it's a little more complicated than this, but it's a big category. So, let's look at this orange. How many categories does this orange belong to, both back and in? It's a big question. How many people like oranges? Right. Good. This is important. How many people hate oranges? Nobody hates oranges. Okay. So the only reason I do that is because this is exactly how Google is going to start to think about every document and every signal they get. You have a couple ways to send these signals to Google. When you link to a site, you can use specific text in that link, and we call that anchor text. When you analyze a site, let's say you have 100,000 documents about oranges. Each one of these documents can take a different approach to this one concept. It's either brown, orange, tasty, juicy, delicious, healthy, profitable, cheap, clean. Those are all potential audiences, and those are all potential keywords for how you're going to do your targeting in SEO. Now, what factors influence the categories of the orange? This is the most important part for the future of SEO, is predicting which things are going to influence how people categorize this orange. And think of the orange as a metaphor for a web page, right? That's the whole point here. Seasonal. It's not always orange, right? That's just a name. It could be green, or it could be brown, or whatever. That changes the audience and changes the category, especially with keyword targeting. Audience. Oranges are poisonous to some people, and they're a necessity for pirates, right? So, depending on who you are, you want to gear your website content specifically to your audience. And no matter what you're marketing, you're not going to be thinking about your product. Nobody cares about your product. Really. I mean, they care about what problems your product solves. So they're going to be focused on themselves. So you will make a mistake in SEO if you go for rankings that describe your product or your service. No, you're going for rankings and aiming for content that describe your consumers' problems. And when you're calculating SEO rankings, it's much cheaper and more effective to, instead of trying to get your own website to rank at first, especially when you're just out of the gate, you only have 20 bucks in your pocket, what you want to do is you aim for the documents that are already ranking well for the keywords you want to target and try to get links from them. Try to get mentions of your website on their sites, because then you only have to spend a very little amount of money compared to the fortune you wanted to spend to beat them. And you get a great link out of it. So it's much smarter to do SEO rankings that way. So you sell oranges online with SEO. Here's what you're going to need to know. If that's true, it should make sense that it's best to use the right categories to describe the orange for the right audience. Google wants to predict your audience categories, whether you're a mom, you're a parent, a cook, you're middle-aged, you're a pirate. They want to know all that information to determine what the best content to display in searches. And they need to use that info to serve users content written with the right categories. That makes Google look smarter. Google needs a way to match content with categories. The internet's too big to do for them to do it manually. It would be impossible. So they use an algorithm. And they also let a lot of sites do the work for them. The words or context sites use to link to other sites impact the categories of content over the site itself. SEO has advanced to the point where you don't even need to link build anymore to do SEO. I actually ran an experiment once where I didn't build a single link and didn't have a single word of unique content on my site. Those are the two big things that people say you have to do in SEO. So everything I did was mentioning the brand name on other sites without linking for a concept called co-occurrence. That Google can actually now read content, recognize that your brand name was mentioned alongside other keywords that they're interested in, and that will increase your rankings. So, yeah, you don't even have to link build anymore.
So whereas Danny was saying about like long-term strategies, how you can be relevant, right? Original content, and you can be an expert in your field and contribute to the community. So you're just telling us the tricks, right? Like the short-term tricks on how to.
No, you're not going to come out the gate as the expert, are you?
How to game the system.
Yeah, you're going to have to pick and prod the empires first to get your niche. And the best way to do that is find out something that they don't do very well. We'll get into that in a second. I'm talking about a little bit about competition and how you use their data to get better yourself. And then finally, so that means that overall what we're saying is it's not always orange.com that wins the race. If you put in orange in Google, it could be, if you're a pirate, cureforscurvy.com. That could be the first result if Google assesses that's the most appropriate for your need at the time. So, Google searches, just a couple things you need to know. Everything you see in Google is a copy of a document. So if you make changes to your site don't get updated in Google, that means Google doesn't know about it yet. The index that you see in Google is all just a copy of what Google saw the last time they checked it. So that's important to understand it. And we're going to do that. So, and yeah, there is a lot of money in SEO. So I'll just give you an example, like local search, we do a lot of local search. And some of the big keywords we're going to be talking about, Seattle pizza delivery, just service-based keywords. And by the way, one of the big reasons we were so successful in local SEO is kind of peculiar. It had a lot to do with smartphones. At the time we were just getting started up, it turns out that a lot of companies were giving away pretty much free smartphones, and internet was getting better on smartphones. And the impact of that was that we had a lot more people who had never owned a computer before suddenly had access to internet on their phone. And lo and behold, what they started doing was doing local searches very, very heavily on there, like where do I get pizza, or pizza near me, or bars open now, something like that. So in local search, you have certain targets that you're interested in. In e-commerce, you have very different targets, and they're more global than localized. So here you go.
Any questions? Just to recap the piece.
Yeah.
Any questions about the stuff covered so far?
No? Are we good?
Sure.
Okay. So here we go. Here's how you do SEO research. First of all, you're going to list the words customers use to talk about your products or services, not necessarily the best SEO words. These are called your primary keywords. So you have to really focus in on how people are actually going to refer to you. So we do this a lot for services, and we have a lot of fights with clients about this, that the way you talk about your services is not necessarily the way the customers talk about your services. So sometimes you do need to make changes to the way you do your branding for the sake of good SEO. It's just something you weigh when you're working on your strategy. Next, you need to list the words customers use to describe their needs, their common problems, their potential hang-ups about your service. And here's a good tip. Whenever you're working in almost anything, read your competitors' negative reviews. And to the point where we almost always do this, we'll go through all the sources of reviews, and we'll list both the frequent positive things that people say about the business and the frequent negative things that people say about the business. Because if you go and let's say you're working for a dog walking service, right, and they say, it's great, but my dog always comes back really dirty, I don't understand. What you would use that for in your marketing is to say, clean dog walking services, right? If you find that a lot of your competitors are getting complaints, you can offset that. And you can get a lot of visibility without a whole lot of work by just paying attention to that kind of stuff.
You have to really offer clean dog service, right?
It's marketing.
Okay. Anyway, so take it with the business side.
You just take them to clean parks.
You're probably not going to be around for very long.
Sure, that's true. It helps you to, let me put it this way, I think it helps you find a way to differentiate your services by focusing on your services.
And that's the most important part. You don't need to write the best article about dog walking services. You need to find a subsection of that, poodle walking services, and write the best poodle walking services article you can, rather than trying to be the dog walking services. I don't want to read that. Okay, now list the potential conversations into which you can inject your products. So my clients keep dying at home. Well, that's an important conversation for you to get involved in if you sell insulated greenhouses, right? So that's what I'm talking about, where you focus more on your SEO core, solution-based marketing versus your product marketing. So it would be a mistake, once again, to try to rank high in Google for insulated greenhouse. You see a lot of people doing it, they're wrong. So, and that's another big thing, is I get a lot of feedback about people saying, well, this competitor A ranks #1, so they must be making money. You don't know that. You really don't in SEO. So, yeah. All right, you can use tools like Google AdWords Keyword Planner if you want to get even more accurate information. So all these keywords I'm talking about, Google offers free tools where you can put those keywords in and get the estimated volume of searches every month. So if you want to compare, I think one of the recent ones I did is I'm working with a travel consultant, and I think one small change to his branding was, what did we change it to? He was a travel advisor, which has some very obvious problems organic because traveladvisor.com, you know. So just changing his branding to call him a travel consultant was huge. I mean, we get, it's on the order that travel advisor would in this tool, it would display maybe 300,000 searches a month versus travel consultant, which would have maybe 300. If you don't know how to think about something like that, you might say, 300,000 searches, that's where I need to go. No, actually, you'd be better off going for the 320 search one, because it's a slimmer market, it's not competitive, it's not controlled by an exact match in Google, and it's not confusing for consumers. It's a niche you can actually make money on. And once you make money on travel consultant, then we'll talk about travel advisor. So, it's interesting to use this tool to get some ideas about where you're either wrong or right about how popular you actually think the word you're targeting is, whatever your product or service. So let's talk about breaking this down. Like if you wanted to make a website to sell whatever you want, the cool thing about being in online marketing is you don't have to have anything, really. I guess the minimum you'd have to have is about $10. You can get a deal on a GoDaddy domain and get a month of hosting or something. After that, you're on your own if you want to be. So you don't have to have any products, you can be an affiliate, you can sell oranges if you want as an affiliate for Sunkist, it doesn't matter. So, but what you do need to have is you have to have a plan for how you're going to create some good content and how you're going to get some popularity. At least you have to have a good idea, that's the minimum. So, earlier we talked about the role of documents, so let's talk about how you create those documents and the right documents to create. Because if you're wanting to rank for best headphones for sale, you're not going to want to put up a document called best headphones for sale and list your headphones. That's not the intent of that search. They didn't want to find an article. They wanted to find headphones for sale. So the most appropriate document to create is a product page, selling a headphone. So I hear a lot of SEOs doing this too, is where they want to rank really well for a keyword, so what they do is they put a ton of content on their site on that topic, forgetting that there's always an intent behind search. So, yeah, we'll dive into this right now. Case study, download feature track. This was a really cool innovation in pizza where they hired on a new guy who was supposed to reinvent the way people order pizza, and he was successful. That's kind of rare. One of the things he did is, I'm sure a lot of you might be familiar with the pizza track, right? Domino's pizza track. This was relatively new when it came out. And this is a very good example of how you would use SEO to determine what the best possible document is to create to match a user need. Some of the things that Domino's was concerned about were, online ordering systems were very simple. People were still calling in, right? They didn't have the confidence to use an ordering system because there was no advantage to doing so. It was actually harder for the user. Not to mention Domino's stole your data. People didn't like that. So what's the sell? What's the advantage of the user using it? So what they did is they created this new pizza track. Same store sales up 14.3%, mobile sales up 35%. Stock price rose from $2.72 to $72 a share. So it's a huge impact. And I'm not going to say that was the only reason that went out, but it had a huge role in how that worked. And all they really did was create this silly little app that kind of works. I don't know if it's very accurate or not, but it's user feedback. It's something that they actually wanted to see. And it solved some of the consumer problems. So rather than Domino's dwelling on their product and the quality of the product, they decided to dwell on the consumer. It worked. All right. Alternatives. You can add value. So let's say you have a site that passes on orders, which is really common. You pass leads to other sites, or anything like Yelp, anything like even Google. One thing you can do is you can optimize content to nail that searcher's intent. E24 Hours is a pretty good example that they focus on food. You know, there's a lot of sites that have all services, stuff like that, but they're focused in on this. So all they're doing is listing places that offer food delivery in Seattle. That's a valuable document, right? You can be a site that relies on user-generated content. The only unique content on Yelp are the user reviews. So the only value Yelp has at all are the reviews, are the content that normal people give them for free. It's brilliant. And a lot of sites operate with that. I wouldn't recommend you enter the directory game and try to compete with Yelp because it's really, really going to be tough. But, you know, knowing that how important user-generated content is in context, it's actually a useful thing to use in your SEO. So, a summary of SEO content. Just about every website should have the following content to feed search engines. So let's say you don't care about any of this. You just want to know, I want a good website. What do I need to have up on their good feed? So here it is. You need to have one page for every service or product you sell. So if you're a spa, anything like that, don't have just one service page with all your services on it. You want to split your services at least up into gender, so male and female services, or you go deeper based on body part, so, you know, feet, hands, whatever. Whatever your services are broken down into, you need to break them down as small as possible, because one big problem in SEO is that you never ever want your homepage to rank for everything. That's a big mistake. And a lot of times in early SEO, what happens is your homepage gets a ton of links. It's easy for people to share your actual site. It's not so easy to get people to share the content that's on your site. And if you have something ranking in Google, you know, it's much better if somebody puts in manicure, Seattle. It's much better to have a landing page on your site targeted to people looking for manicure services than your homepage, because then the expectation is they come to your homepage, which ranked in Google, and they have to still find the page they were actually looking for. So that's a big problem. And no matter how successful you are in rankings, I've actually seen quite a few sites tank because they didn't really pay attention to that. Wow, I'm expecting my users to go find this page on my site once they get here. That's a problem. That's a really big break in the referral funnel. So that's why you have a page for every service or product. That's at least the first step, so you don't have to compete with yourself. Historical brand information, just have an about us page with about trust. Contact page. If you have multiple locations, one for every location. If you don't, if you have an e-commerce site, you should still have a contact page, and you should still have a relative location, at least a city, somewhere where they can associate that, hey, you would actually exist and you're not in, you know, the Philippines or anywhere else where they're farming out this kind of stuff. Practical tool-based content, code calculator, pizza builder, checkout system. So make your website a tool that encourages people to come back and use it again. Some people do that by having consistent content, like a blog, where people can subscribe and they want to come back to see what you have to say in the future. Some people do that by having a simple little calculator. A lot of people like those percentage calculators because they can't remember the formula to calculate what percent something is. So if you have a site for that, you can actually make a lot of money on ads by just having a calculator and getting it to rank. Pretty simple. So that's stuff you can do. And updates, your blog, your company news, user feedback, comments, live chat, then security and clarity, finally. SSL protection, privacy policy, HTML, and XML syntax. That's some technical stuff, but SSL protection, so that's the difference between whether a site has HTTP or HTTPS. The security feature. And actually, just a few months ago, Google decided that that's now a ranking factor. So if you don't have SSL protection, you are not going to lose rankings possibly, but you're going to be, that's just one less thing that you're going to have in your report. So it's worth doing. Even if you're not an e-commerce site, and even if you don't store any user data. Okay, so improving is visibility. So we talked about how people might share documents online, started discussing how those play a role in SEO. So how do you do it yourself? Rather than waiting on people to, this is what Google wants you to do. They want you to wait and create awesome content, and eventually somebody will come along and pick it up if you're good enough.
I actually have a question about like you're talking about like building this all the ICO around your website, but now there's other avenues like Yelp, Facebook, and how those things are interacting or integrating regarding to ICO. I mean, like I give an example. Like for the bar business.
For the what business?
For bar business, like sports bars. Say, a lot of traffics are happening on Facebook and like a little bit less on Yelp. So how would you suggest? Like, I mean, all the bars have their own website, but a lot of people actually don't go that.
Sure, let's talk about bars. So the best advice for bars, event marketing. I mean, first of all, you better have a happy hour, right? But it gets deeper than that. There's a program around here called Geeks Who Drink, and one of our clients is actually Bob and Bob. And one of the biggest success stories is getting in with that Geeks Who Drink, and that's a trivia night. There's a lot of press that comes from that program, where they have their own site, and they list all the individual bars that have trivia nights sponsored by Geeks Who Drink. I think it's free to get in. In fact, we've been in it for a few years now, but I think it's free to join the program. And you get so much free press out of that, right? You get a trivia night where people come and drink and win free food and hopefully eat paid food.
Sorry, so that website, the
Geeks Who Drink.
That's basically like another Yelp, but they basically a network of the old bars that provide. Oh, okay.
Yeah. No matter what you're talking about a source of referring traffic. I guess when we talk about Google, that's because I think it's currently about 85% of local sales come through Google, and Google sends about 65% of all online traffic. Wow. Considering that every other website or source of traffic has to take up that last 35%. If Geeks Who Drink, or if Mike's Best Bars in Seattle referred the most traffic for Seattle bars, people would be talking about me, my document. They would be trying to get visibility on my document. But instead, we talk a lot about Google. But chances are good you're going to be working with very small pieces of the pie. You're not going to be thinking in big numbers. If you're a local bar, your goal is not to get website traffic of 100,000 a month. That's ridiculous. You're probably wasting your money and your time if you're doing that. Instead, what you're looking for are the small sources of traffic, directories like Yelp, programs that you can join that have a value add to your business above and beyond what you're doing for SEO. I mean, most SEO rankings should be an after effect of the work you're doing, not the purpose of the work you're doing. So if you're thinking about things like, wow, I should be in the Chamber of Commerce because it's a great way to get leads, or I should join Geeks Who Drink for a bar. I should have local beers on tap if I can afford it, because then I can get links from the local breweries who list all the bars that carry their beers. Or same with food. If you want to get some quick visibility in local scene, especially like a city like Seattle, San Francisco, any kind of city associated with a little more health conscious, trendy, accenting things about your business, the gluten-free pizza, maybe as part of your bar, that can get you some quick leads. So a little piece of pie from a smaller niche. So it's irrelevant to Valley Bars is ranking for like Valley. I think they're number one for Valley Bars. I haven't checked in a while, but that probably doesn't bring them anywhere near the amount of leads and traffic they're ranking for either local beers or ranking for Trivia Night Ballard, Sports Bar Ballard, much more isolated long tail keywords. That's what brings them their actual business.
So basically putting your business into like some other like organizations like that Chamber of Commerce, or do you suggest like to build links like on your website or Facebook or whatever with that link, like say your names are on this website, and would that increase ICO too?
Well, you take a concept like isolationism online, where if you put up a document that doesn't link to any other documents and no document links to it, it would be impossible for Google to find it. How would they ever know that document even exists? They wouldn't. So you take that concept and extend it to the realm of authority, where you're talking about, well, then the more links the document has, and the better links it has, therefore the more important it must be. That's a pretty natural, logical transition there. As far as how you're spending your time, we're always talking about ROI. So yeah, you could spend hours a week going out and building as many links as you can. It might not do you that much good. Instead, you want to look at your competitors and see what links they have. Chances are you're not going to be the first bar where you're opening up. So, and if you are, good for you. I mean, you're not going to have a whole lot of competition, so you should do all right. But if you're not the first bar, look at all the other competition and where they are. It's a foundation of local SEO and a foundation of how Google is going to look at you. The last big confusing part for SEOs about how search engine competition and results work is the crowd factor. When Dan was talking about being digital citizens, it directly translates over into SEO where they'll say, we are aware of 12 bars in Ballard, right? 11 of them have links from Yelp. Any new bars that join Ballard, we should expect to have a link from Yelp because that's what the rest of the industry is doing. So Google will constantly be updating what it understands about the industry and trusting the people it already trusts in Google to set the bar for new entrants into search. You have to topple people who've been there for a while. So you better do what they've done and more, right? So, anybody else? Yeah, go ahead. What do you want to look at? We'll do like a live site review.
So a lot of these suggestions, they seem to be very B2C driven.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, if I'm doing a B2B driven, more professional looking application,
Mm-hmm.
what are the kind of things that a potential customer is looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a theory actually that B2B doesn't exist. That even if you're in a B2B market, you're still talking to consumers, right? But I get it, and I'll talk to you a little bit about this. That you still have to be focused on where the people you're trying to reach get their information. In B2B markets, it's more common that people are trusting their peers. They're asking people who they're close to, or they're working through a buyer. A lot of government agencies are working through programs that you really can't tap into. They don't have any potential. On the other hand, most of you guys are probably going to end up in startups, tech startups, or you're going to start a business. I mean, how many of you guys want to do a startup? Either start one or join, right? It's fun. Bootstrap startup, you can wake up tomorrow and be a millionaire, or be broke. Focus on positivity. So let's look at this, speaking of B2B. Of course, we're on this list. GeekWire startup list, right? This is a list of startups in Seattle. You have to submit your startup to be on it. It's free. It takes about, we submit most of our startups to it. It takes about 18 to 24 hours for it to go live. We get so many referrals from this little list. I mean, you'll see that when we're talking about rankings, list of startups in Seattle, it ranks #1. So it gets a lot of visibility. And that's just an example keyword. There's a lot more relevant keywords bringing in traffic. So it gets a lot of eyeballs on it. So getting a listing on there for people who are like, oh, I'm a company that needs HR, like outsourced HR or accounting or something. A lot of times, a big portion of them are going to go here. The other portion are going to go to other trusted brands like Yelp. If you're doing services for companies like painting, commercial painting, commercial roofing, stuff like that, you're probably going to some of the big name directories, House, Angie's List, probably not for much longer, stuff like that. So all it really is finding out where the people making the decisions are finding your products. And it's worth mentioning that they're still consumers. The stuff that anticipate their needs. I'm working with a very, very large temporary structure provider right now that we're retooling their marketing because they've been struggling by following the industry. They're getting a lot of links from industry publications because that's the assumption and that's where B2B markets find this. We're finding out that that's not really true. They don't get it from buyer's guides, right? Those famous glossies that you see all of them. Those don't work. What they are doing is they're getting more anticipatory of people who are not very aware of their product and inserting the product into a conversation where they weren't aware you were alternative yet. So instead of, I'll just say, we do fabric structures, right? So fabric greenhouses, fabric warehouses. They're engineered, they're durable, but they're very portable, okay? So rather than try to get into conversations where people are already talking about fabric structures, that's kind of the mistake there in B2B. What you do instead is you look for people who are setting up golf courses. People having conversations about how to save money setting up a golf course. It turns out that our fabric structure for maybe golf cart storage is a much cheaper alternative than setting up a permanent structure. And in this case, maybe a permanent structure is necessary. Or for the golf course, you're saying, why don't you get one of these fabric structures? Because then you have so much more event space you can rent out and get residual income month over month by having just another place where you can have dining or whatever. So the big mistake people make in B2B is they assume that, once again, B2B is going to care even less about your product. They're actually going to be very skeptical of your product no matter how good you are. What they're going to care about is trust. You're going to have to earn their trust. So all the content on your site should be earning their trust. If you're a lawyer working for business, your face front and center, because they expect to work with you, meet you. They don't want to have someone they can trust. Dog walking, yeah, they want to see you. So looking at, well, I guess that would be a B2B, but anyway, is that good enough? Yeah. Who's next?
There is a post on our website from about a month ago that I wrote that's called B2B Doesn't Exist. That'll break it down for you.
Okay. No other questions? So anybody have a business they want to look at? Kind of see how you really break these sort of concepts down in real time. This is most of my job, is where I sit down with clients and they show me their website and I try to be really polite as I completely break them down. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all right, so I have a question. It's a little, I guess, amorphous just because of the context of it.
Sure.
So we are working in actually this class for a startup that is focused on a reservation system for private campsites. And they have asked us to help them attract baby boomer RV owners. And they primarily want us to look at offline strategies, but we told them that there is sort of a complementary effect of having an online feature as well. And so, I guess from an SEO perspective, what would you think that we could possibly do to help them?
You want to try to sell them online?
We don't need to, I mean, I don't need selling them online as much as,
They're like aware of the site, and
they're
aware of,
Camp Native.
yeah, they're aware of like, they just like, it's not that they're like, they don't see value online. I mean, they feel they have that perfectly dialed, and they want us to help with like some of their other offline strategies. But it's really more looking at that demographic than what is their target. So like, whether it's offline or online, like ways to reach them.
Okay.
Yeah,
What Camp Guide?
Camp Native.
Camp Native. .com.
Yep.
So, I guess just really quick, how are you planning to track offline marketing, like delivering metrics to prove that it was going well?
We're sort of at the stage right now where we're kind of throwing stuff against the wall in terms of what strategies we think would be the best ROI. So I mean, mostly thinking about what's going to be the cost for these strategies and what's the anticipated return.
Okay.
That's kind of where we're starting today.
How old is this? This site?
So I think they just did a reboot. I think it's pretty recent.
Yeah, the book in the last 6 months. Okay.
Can you explain what you're doing?
Yeah, I will. Okay, these are a couple tools actually I use. Very quickly, what I want to know, what do you have already? What do you rank for? How much traffic do you get? And who's talking about it? Who's linking to you? Because that's going to give me a lot of clues both on who your competitors are and, you know, where you're at, what kind of goals we can actually set. In your case, not too aggressive. I wouldn't go back to the client saying we're going to get you 5,000 listeners or something. What you are going to want to do is showcase what you already got. Right? Look at what you're already kind of visible for. With just a little tweaking, you can get more visibility. We're always looking for what we call low-hanging fruit. So, right off the bat, the things that you're going to want to do online. I see that you have, I assume these are listings here for the actual state parks? No. Okay. Interesting. Well, let's see. Okay.
John, is there a way to focus those projectors?
Is it not focus? I have terrible eyes, so I just.
It's a little hard to see.
Oops, focus.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm flipping through to see what's really.
But the
ranking.
small fonts are hard to see though.
Alright, now I'm checking how many sites link to it and what the actual sites are. So you can see here, Angel Conference. And this is a very cool tool for Ahrefs, where if I actually even want to know the context of how that site's mentioned, I can go in here and find out. Obviously, if I was competing against this site, this would be one of the first things I would do to say, who's linking to them? You know, who should I chase after first? So, okay. We need to do some structural work on the site. One of the problems I'm seeing right now is you saw that page where all the content was hidden unless you hovered over it, where it was ranking for the name of a state park, and yet when we got to the page, a lot of us were probably confused. Why is this page ranking? Where's the information I was looking for on this page? So we're actually working in this segment right now with yurts. You know what a yurt is if you're doing camping stuff? So yurts, they're very heavy with outdoor lifestyle, tiny home blogs, people who are interested in letting go, living that lifestyle. I just read an article about a guy who I think it's on Amazon campus that he lives in the back of a truck with like a big van, and that's kind of his thing. But no matter what you're talking about, what kind of content do you think is valuable for these users? I mean, seriously, if they're thinking about doing a reservation because they have an RV, this is vacation, right? This is vacation. What's important to them? What do they need to know about these campgrounds, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think we started to go down the path a little bit. I think the idea of like what are the features of the campsite, the sort of the amenities there, really emphasizing the social aspects because we found that baby boomers are going to the campsites for the social communal feel of it.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of emphasizing those aspects are others I'm missing.
Okay.
And the crossover activities like hunting and fishing,
Yeah.
other things that these people might do.
You guys should do events. So if you want people to treat your site like that, one of the best things you might want to do is make it for people even when they're already at the site. This could be included in an app. To help people who are taking advantage of this program get included into events that maybe you guys sponsor as a company at individual campgrounds, or that you encourage other people to sponsor. Kind of like the way Meetup works. There's two ways you're going to benefit from that. First of all, you get more engagement on your site. If you get more engagement on your site, you get more opportunity to sell them. If you're trying to sell it to a client, I mean, we can tell you where their mouse went, where they scrolled. In certain cases, we can get retina scans where we can tell you where their eyes moved on the page to see heat areas. There's a lot of complicated data we can get that you can't get offline. And as far as the events are concerned, you're going to get a lot of marketing of your own. People will hopefully share those events on your site. They'll hopefully add content to it. Hey, I enjoyed coming to this event. Maybe you could, give them something for that. Give them a coupon for actually hosting an event on the site. We always talk about the idea of, should we brag? So let's say you want to get like a link from Huffington Post. Is the right move to reach out and find a writer who's just dirty enough to sell a link for like $100 or something? No, yeah, I guess. I guess if you're really sure and you trust that person, I don't care. Google will if they find out. But we usually treat content as a commodity in that if you're going to bribe a site, give them content instead. Because that's more or less what Google wants you to do. And everybody knows content's really expensive, especially since how much bad content there is out there. I would suggest you guys move in the direction of event. The links are meaningless. Google doesn't really track event links, but at the same time, if your goal is really to improve your client's impression of your role in your marketing, that will have a big immediate impact for, a couple hours work between the two of you.
Yeah.
Other than that, you definitely need more links. You need more content, static content. A lot of your content is tied up in your blog. So there's not a whole lot that Google's going to respect for a very long time. Because blog content is usually not evergreen. There's no incentive for Google to keep it around for very long in their index. So they're going to be more likely to index really dense pages. So you might want to do a camping guide, how to prepare for RV camping, especially if you're renting. More information about the individual campgrounds, and then you can get started getting links from the names of the campgrounds. If you have pages up for the individual campgrounds and you treat those as being the source, the best source out there for information about that campground, most of those campground sites suck. You can probably beat it. So, look at the page, you'll probably get links for people referencing these individual properties.
If you're focusing on the offline side of things, the event marketing is definitely the right way to go. But you also should have them or have Camp Native provide those people who organize events with certain ways to show off or brag and identify themselves as like members of a tribe. Okay, You know, stickers would be, you know, a great start. Hats with that demographic would be fantastic. Create kind of a whole campaign around these planned RV baby boomer events, right, that they put together. And start branding that and create communities, Facebook groups, and everything else to piggyback off of what's happening in real life so they can then share their experience online. And then you want to affiliate the name of the event, the branded event that you're printing all this swag for, with a section of the website that says, okay, this is the home of that event, and here are our Facebook groups and meetup pages and everything else. You were on the right track that you got to have what's online reflect what's in real life, but getting something that's an identifiable, comprehensive hook. Where it's like, oh man, other people like me with similar interests are going to be here at this time, and we're going to be wearing hats and t-shirts, right? And then just take that and record it online and have them share with their friends. And boomers definitely are pretty much the most active generation on Facebook right now.
I guess that's the problem in that when we talk about the sort of technology gap, our clients seem to think that baby boomers are not very technologically proficient and really very, very involved, probably outside of Facebook. So it's how do we reach them through other means?
Use the technology they're using, which is Facebook.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the other networks. Just start and end with the target demographic, with your ideal client. Make a persona. Mike is 55. He and his second wife Sarah bought an RV last year. She has grandkids. He doesn't. You think about that person and cater to their habits.
Okay.
They also like iPads.
So you have these entrepreneurs, right? They form a hypothesis, right? So like everything's about hypothesis, right? So this guy's hypothesis is that, hey, baby boomers home free cable website. Right? Is it true? I mean, I always wonder, that's just their view, right? Is it based on their hunch, or
Yeah. It's probably some intuition, but yeah. It's something good.
Just like entrepreneurs, they always think their product's the best, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they ask you to do it, and then they you show them evidence that the product is not that good, right? So they had a hypothesis, right? So that's the idea of science, right?
So I have one more thing to add here. Kind of like what Mike was talking about like bars and Ballard. Okay, you got to look at what all the other bars are doing, and it could be a totally different kind of bar. Somebody with very artisan food, kind of more gastropub versus sports bar, right? You could do the same thing in any industry. With the RV industry, with that demographic, I would actually look at Harley Davidson clubs, right? Because similar demographic, doing similar things, right? And observe what they're doing online and in real life and mimic some of that, because I don't know how popular RV meetups and events are, but it can be created by looking at similar models that serve a very similar demographic.
Good. Thank you.
And you could use these tools to reverse engineer very similar things. Basically, it becomes forensic at that point.
I mean, it's actually more true that people don't buy on Facebook, or Facebook is not a very good source of leads, and baby boomers absolutely use it. I'm sitting here with them.
Yeah.
Actually, more than some other demographics. That's a complete misconception. So, and yeah, Facebook. I mean, we actually don't even advertise on Facebook. Well, we won't be for much longer because it doesn't send any sales over the app. So I won't get too into that. I won't call Facebook out. Yeah. Cool. Okay. You want to do one more, or are we good?
We're good.
I guess we're good.
We're good. Do you have any? Want to get these
So,
guys out a little bit early today, but do you have any concluding remarks? Any takeaway from your?
Well, I mean.
Oh, by the way, the document, the exact to-do list, right? What to do? These guys are always sharing online.
Sure.
So if you ever want to refer to this reference on how to improve the mechanics of the page, then
Okay.
Mike will have.
I have a question. Like when you're talking about ROIs, like can you give some examples? Like what's your ROI calculation?
Sure.
And like.
Obviously, when you get down to brass tacks, eventually your clients are going to expect you to give them some numbers, right?
Yeah.
They're going to want to know, well, if you're spending this much money, how much money am I going to make on it? And there's some rough calculations you can do. The roughest you can do is using sort of equation that we expect that for any given source of traffic to your website, you should convert at about 1.5%. And that depends on what your conversion is. Some are going to be higher, and some, most of the time if you're lower, it's something wrong, right? So a lot of times that conversion is submitting a lead or buying something, right? So if you look at a document and it turns out that that document, let's say a Google search result for, I don't know, best hats, gets 1,000 searches every month. So you can be reasonably sure that 1,000 people view that document, which is in this case a search result. The very first result in organic tends to get about 35% of the traffic. So now we're down to expecting that because I rank #1 in Google, I'm going to get 350 visitors from this document. Okay? From that, you're going to be converting at 1.5%. So depending on what your conversion is, if your conversion is $10, if you're selling a $10 hat, you need to be sure that you're doing the math properly, and that should drive how much content, how much SEO you're going to have to do to keep that. However you do it, and like John said, I don't do just SEO at all. I do online marketing, so I'm all about visibility, right? SEO is just one of the tools that we use. So if you can be reasonably sure you put together a plan for rankings and targeting documents that you know the traffic, you can start, setting some goalposts. If you're 100% not sure, 20% month over month is good expectations for SEO once you get rolling after the first 3 or 4 months. The first 3 or 4 months, by the way, is a lot of waiting and a lot of scared because things take a very long time to pick up. Anytime you do something online in SEO, you have to publish it, and then the site has to accept and put it up, and then Google has to find it, and then a lot of other things have to happen before it actually gets applied to increasing your rankings. It's not an instant thing. So never ever promise anybody any SEO growth, which is in the first 3 or 4 months of SEO time. And if they balk at that, or they don't understand why that's important, then you're going to have a very tough relationship with that client anyway, because they don't understand it. Or you can push them more in the direction of PPC, like paid Google ads, if you want to get absolutely quick visibility. Yeah. So with that, I guess after ROI is about experience. You know how much you spent in a specific industry in the past. Beyond that, and generally the numbers that are going to be coming your way. After that, SEO is supposed to be an investment. There's no immediate gains most of the time in classic ranking-based SEO. So you need to sell people or keep in mind that this will pay off over time because it's an after effect of all the other good things I'm doing, like getting on that startup list. Every link that you build in SEO should be a link that in the meantime is sending you traffic. That's very important because you don't want to be publishing content where you're pretty sure, you hope you're the last person to ever read that article. That's old SEO, right? Or you don't want to publish a link that you don't think anybody's going to click. What's the point? You can manipulate Google until they get smart enough so you're not winning anymore, and then you lose. So I think it's more important when you're talking about ROI to break it down and talk about benefits of individual things that you're doing and how over time they'll also give you good rankings in Google, or whatever your goal is. So, good enough?
One more question. I'm curious about optimization of mobile applications.
Mobile applications.
Yeah,
What are you trying to do? Like promote those mobile apps?
Yeah, promote them, they can come up in the Apple Store, and the Apple Store.
Oh boy, reviews. I mean, a lot of mobile apps, no matter what site you're on, based on it's been user-created content most of the time in the reviews. So it's not even just important to score those reviews, it's the actual content of the reviews. Because you'll notice in Google search or in any kind of search that when you put keywords in, it's weird. Google's actually reading the reviews and choosing keywords from those reviews. That means that, I won't tell anybody, but if you're making up reviews and putting them up and you find a way to begin it or whatever you want to do, keep in mind that there is a way you could actually get the most impact out of what you're doing by saying, let's make sure people talk a lot about the things I want them to talk about. Or when you're doing outreach for people who downloaded your app and you want them to leave a review, make sure when you're in your call to action, there's a hint about what you want the review to kind of be about. You don't want to hit them up and say, hey, give me a 5-star review. But you want to hit them up and say, hey, if you have some time, review our how long it took to download the app. It's terrible, but you know what I mean. One great thing is people are not very good writers. So when you try to generate more reviews, and this goes for small businesses too, by the way, and you have a list of clients and you want to reach out to them and say, please leave me a review. Most of them are going to freeze up because they're not writers and they don't know what to write. And they don't want to put themselves out there and have people judge them. It's a pretty simple concept in psychology. So what you do is in your outreach email, give them examples, even if you make them up. Like, here's what other people have said about us in their reviews. And sure enough, the people who are leaving your reviews will tend to copy things that you had in your examples. And that's where you can kind of subconsciously steer them in a direction where they're writing reviews that are going to help your SEO. Beyond that, make a good app. You can get featured on a lot of lists, or you can write lists of your own about apps where you're relevant. Try to get those published on tech sites. Those send a lot of referrals, and it's good link building. Chances are you're going to be promoting your listing on the actual app store versus a website. I would eventually, if it does well on the store, I would eventually start a website or something to at least have a canonical, original, this is our brand. Because the problem with investing too much authority into an outside third-party source is who can take that content down anytime they want. Or they can remove your reviews and you can lose everything. So you want to have complete control of your product as branding.
Yeah, I have something a little bit to add to that. So we've been working with a client that has an app called My Neighbor, which is peer-to-peer neighbor lending of just whatever's in your garage, right? And they approached us, and this is in context of contextual omnipresence, right? And they said, okay, we want to beta test in Seattle. We want to focus on neighborhoods. So we're going to approach the guys who actually run the neighborhood blogs, which is us, okay? So they came to us and said, can we do like a partnership where you guys write about us in these different neighborhoods and we do, some videos and stuff. So, it's thinking about, okay, what is the purpose of the app? Who's it for and where are they at, right? And so that's who you want to go out and partner with, which was exactly the right move, they did with us. But you think about, what community is this app helping? And then do that outreach and networking and link building and contribution with those communities, and then ask them to review the app, download the app, try it out, make them feel like insider beta testers, right? Because that's going to be what gets new downloads up, which is going to help your iTunes store rankings, but it's also going to catch the press. And ultimately, a lot of people are downloading first because of press and notoriety.
Is it to go with the fact, that we talked about the influencers, right? These are the kind of people that you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So you're looking for, okay, who's already kind of the heavyweight in this category, and how do I go partner with them, right? How do I get them backing me? How do I get them to be my Gandalf or my Obi-Wan, okay? You want to be, Luke Skywalker to their Obi-Wan.
Cool. Are we good? You get satisfied? All right.